In the collective subconscious of Western civilization, sunbathing is basically a religion. It is a full-body sacrifice to the gods of aesthetics. When we go to the beach, we treat it like a giant rotisserie oven. We flip ourselves over with extreme patience, roasting our fronts, our backs, and our sides like bacon in a frying pan. But if you travel to the other side of the planet, to China, during the absolute hottest days of summer, you will witness one of the most bizarre and paradoxical visual spectacles on Earth. Imagine walking down a busy street in China during the sweltering heat of July. Everywhere you look, young people are taking cover under UV-blocking umbrellas. They are armed with wide-brimmed hats, dark sunglasses, and long sleeves. They look absolutely terrified of the sun. They want to shield every single inch of their skin from the light. But then you look a little closer and you notice a massive logical rift. These exact same people, who are terrified of tanning, terrified of aging, and terrified of UV rays, are lying face down on the grass in perfect unison. Or they are sitting backward on park benches, pulling up their shirts without a second thought, and sacrificing their completely bare, unprotected backs to the blistering summer sun. To a Western observer, this looks incredibly absurd. It makes zero sense. Why would a culture so obsessed with staying pale engage in what looks like self-punishing behavior? The answer is actually mind-blowing. They aren't sunbathing for their skin. They are doing it for their organs. In their cognitive framework, skin color is just casing aesthetics. It's the plastic shell of the computer. But the spine? The spine is the hidden energy interface to the underlying hardware. And what's even more chilling is that Western civilization once knew this backdoor interface existed. We didn't just forget it. We were taught to ignore it. To understand why, we have to go back to the 1920s. Back then, contracting tuberculosis was basically like receiving a direct message from the Grim Reaper. There was no cure. But in the freezing Swiss Alps, a doctor named Auguste Rollier hacked the Reaper's logic using an incredibly primitive method. Dr. Rollier's lab had no expensive centrifuges. He had no magical pills. He only had snowy mountains and pure, blinding sunlight. He built a series of clinics known as Solariums. He took dying tuberculosis patients and had them strip off their shirts in -20-degree winds, exposing their spines precisely to intense ultraviolet radiation. And a miracle happened. Dr. Rollier discovered that while all-over tanning yielded minimal medical results, soaking the spine in light sent the immune system's lethality skyrocketing. It even allowed decayed bones to regenerate. This method, known as heliotherapy, cured thousands of patients who had been sentenced to death by modern medicine. Even in the dark, muddy trenches of World War I, the power of this backdoor interface flashed through the smoke of battle. Because of the freezing, damp environment, soldiers suffered from severe respiratory diseases and horrific wound infections. But experienced military doctors noticed a strange phenomenon. During brief ceasefires, certain soldiers would risk sniper fire just to climb up, lie face down on the edge of the trench, and let the sun soak deep into their spines. Those soldiers healed and recovered their energy far faster than anyone else. The doctors at the time couldn't explain the photobiological logic, but those soldiers had accidentally triggered the human body's most powerful immune switch. So, what happened? If it worked so well, why don't we do it in the West anymore? Because the 1940s arrived. The mass industrialization of antibiotics hit the market. And this free, natural, and completely unpatentable sunlight patch was thoroughly erased into the dust of history by pharmaceutical giants. When Dr. Rollier's solariums were dismantled, Westerners began to see sunlight purely as a cosmetic beauty product, or worse, just a culprit for skin aging. And in doing so, we completely shut down the physical energy portal that had once saved countless lives. But while the West replaced this portal with a pill, the ancient logic was preserved in China through a stubborn, 2,000-year-old cultural inertia. a logic that views the body as a high-performance server. If the human body is viewed as a precision-engineered biological server, then the ancient Chinese medical text, the Huangdi Neijing, is its incredibly detailed hardware architecture manual. It doesn't talk about abstract magic or mystic souls. It strictly defines the body's polarities. The abdomen is yin. The back is yang. In this ancient architecture, the most critical component is the invisible red line running straight down the spine. They called it the governing vessel, or the ocean of yang. Let's translate that into modern geek terms. Your spine is your body's BIOS, the basic input-output system. Think about it. The spine doesn't run social apps. It doesn't process daily emails or workplace anxiety. It manages the lowest level power distribution and hardware initialization. When the BIOS is stable, even if the software layer, the consciousness, occasionally crashes from stress, the core hardware keeps running. This means the spine isn't just a physical scaffold made of bone. It is a high-frequency receiving array. This is the exact point where ancient mysticism meets modern physics. Today, scientists call it photobiomodulation, or PBM. And it proves that the ancients were entirely correct. When you expose your back to the sun, the light doesn't just stop at the surface. Invisible infrared beams plunge 3 centimeters deep, slicing through your skin like glass. They slam directly into the dying batteries of your spinal cord, your mitochondria. What happens next is a violent physical reboot. The sunlight literally kickstarts your cells, forcing them to pump out raw, explosive energy. You aren't just getting warm. You are plugging your failing hardware directly into a stellar nuclear reactor. You are launching a system-wide optimization program. Today, a new generation of biological hackers is emerging in the concrete heart of China. They aren't sunbathing for a tan, they are performing a high-density energy download on their balconies. Why? Because they are fighting a modern villain, artificial winter. 10 hours a day in air-conditioned offices, fueled by iced coffee, we have forced our biology into a year-round low-power mode. The dampness settles deep. The spinal ganglia hibernate. This is why we feel inexplicably sad and chronically fatigued. The Chinese call this hack treating winter diseases in summer. By utilizing the year's peak stellar radiation, they trigger a system-wide repair program. These infrared beams don't just warm the skin, they disperse the industrial cold lurking in your bones. It is a physical-level system reinstall, so next time you head out, rethink the rotisserie chicken approach. Stop roasting the casing, protect your face, turn around, expose your spine. Be the hacker who logs back into the natural world through the ultimate backdoor interface.